This is Venezuela, a nation whose name means Little Venice, a place of immense natural wealth, and a history as dramatic and turbulent as any epic novel. Today, we're journeying through the centuries to uncover the story of Venezuela, from its indigenous roots to its modern-day struggles and enduring spirit. Before European ships ever crossed the Atlantic, this land was home to diverse indigenous peoples like the Caribs, Arawaks, and Tomoto-Cuicas. They lived in harmony with the environment, developing complex societies, agriculture, and trade routes. Their world was forever changed in 1498 when Christopher Columbus sailed along the coast, marveling at what he called a paradise on earth. He was followed by explorers like Amerigo Vespucci, who, upon seeing the stilt houses of the indigenous people rising from the water, was reminded of Venice, giving the land its name. The Spanish conquest was swift and brutal. Drawn by rumors of El Dorado, the mythical city of gold, conquistadors pushed deep into the interior. While the legendary city was never found, the Spanish discovered another kind of gold, fertile land perfect for agriculture. They established settlements, and by the mid-16th century, the province of Venezuela was officially part of the Spanish Empire. For nearly 300 years, Venezuela was a colonial outpost. Its economy was built on the backs of enslaved Africans and subjugated indigenous people, working on vast plantations, growing cacao and coffee for export to Europe. Society was rigidly structured, with Spanish-born peninsulares at the top and everyone else below. But beneath the surface of colonial control, the seeds of revolution were being sown. The winds of change that swept through America and France at the end of the 18th century eventually reached South America. The desire for liberty ignited in the hearts of the criollos, people of Spanish descent born in the colonies. And one man would rise to become the face of this movement, Simón Bolívar. Born into a wealthy Criollo family in Caracas, Bolívar was a visionary, a military genius, and a tireless advocate for independence. He dreamt of a united South America, free from Spanish rule. The Venezuelan War of Independence was a long, bloody struggle. It began in 1810 and raged for over a decade. Bolívar, known as El Libertador, led his armies across treacherous mountains and vast plains, fighting against overwhelming odds. Key battles like the Battle of Carabobo in 1821 were decisive, finally securing Venezuela's independence from Spain. After independence, Bolívar's dream of a unified Grand Colombia, a federation including modern-day Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and Panama, was short-lived. By 1830, internal divisions caused the federation to collapse, and Venezuela became a separate republic. The 19th century was a chaotic period for the new nation. The country was plagued by political instability, civil wars, and a series of caudillas, or strongman military leaders, who ruled with an iron fist. The economy remained largely agricultural, dependent on coffee and cacao prices, leaving the nation vulnerable to global market fluctuations. The majority of the population remained impoverished, while a small elite controlled the land and the power. Then, in the early 20th century, everything changed. In 1914, a massive oil well, Sumac 1, blew out in the Maracaibo Basin. Black gold. Oil was discovered in vast, almost unimaginable quantities. This discovery would fundamentally reshape Venezuela forever. By the 1920s, Venezuela had become one of the world's largest oil exporters. The influx of petrodollars was staggering. The country transformed from a poor, agrarian society into a booming, modernizing nation. Caracas became a glitzy metropolis of skyscrapers and highways. For a time, Venezuela was the richest country in Latin America, boasting the highest GDP per capita. This period, from the 1950s to the 1970s, is often looked back on as a golden age. Democracy, after decades of dictatorships, finally seemed to take root with the Pontificio Pact of 1958, which established a two-party system that provided decades of political stability. The government used oil wealth to fund massive social programs, improving education, healthcare, and infrastructure. It seemed the promise of Venezuela had finally been realized. But the oil blessing was also a curse. The economy became dangerously over-reliant on a single commodity. When global oil prices were high, the country thrived. But when they crashed, as they did in the 1980s, the Venezuelan economy went into a tailspin. The massive national debt became unmanageable. The social programs that people had come to depend on were cut. Inequality, which had been masked by the oil boom, became starkly visible. Corruption, which had always been present, grew rampant. Public frustration mounted. This widespread discontent culminated in 1989 with the Caracazo, a series of massive and violent riots against government austerity measures. The golden age was officially over, and the political system that had seemed so stable began to crumble. It was in this climate of anger and disillusionment that a new figure emerged. In 1992, a charismatic army lieutenant colonel named Hugo Chavez led a failed coup attempt. Though it failed, his televised surrender, where he took responsibility and promised his movement would back, turned him into a folk hero. He represented a break from the old, corrupt political class. In 1998, running on a populist platform, Chavez was democratically elected president. He promised a Bolivarian revolution, a radical transformation of Venezuelan society to benefit the poor. He rewrote the constitution, nationalized key industries, including the oil sector, and poured billions into social missions called misiones, which provided food, housing, and healthcare to the poorest communities. For many, he was a savior, finally giving a voice to the voiceless and redistributing the nation's wealth. His supporters, known as Chavistas, were fiercely loyal. However, his policies also created deep divisions. His opponents accused him of being an authoritarian ruler who dismantled democratic institutions, persecuted political rivals, and mismanaged the economy. The nationalization of private businesses and farms led to production collapses. The government's reliance on high oil prices to fund its spending became a ticking time bomb. When Chavez died in 2013, he left behind a deeply polarized nation and an economy on the brink. His hand-picked successor, Nicolas Maduro, inherited this precarious situation. Shortly after Maduro took office, global oil prices plummeted. The economic model, already fragile, completely shattered. The results have been catastrophic. Hyperinflation has made the currency virtually worthless. There are severe shortages of food, medicine, and basic necessities. Millions of Venezuelans, facing hunger and a collapsed healthcare system, have fled the country, creating one of the largest refugee crises in the world. The political situation has been marked by mass protests, international sanctions, and a contested presidency. Today, Venezuela stands at a crossroads, facing a complex humanitarian and political crisis. But the story of Venezuela is not just one of crisis. It is also a story of resilience. It's the story of a people with a rich culture, a deep love for their beautiful land, and an unbreakable spirit. From the indigenous peoples who first called it home to the liberators who fought for its freedom, to the everyday citizens striving for a better future, the history of Venezuela is a powerful testament to the human struggle for liberty, prosperity, and justice. Understanding this complex past is the key to understanding its present, and perhaps to glimpse its future. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through Venezuelan history. If you found this video insightful, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you next time.